Welcome to Hello Downtown, a podcast by Downtown Sioux Falls.
This is Hello Downtown, the podcast where we explore the people, the places, and the pulse of our city's core. I'm your host, Brandon Hansen, and every episode we dive into the stories shaping life in the heart of Sioux Falls. So whether you're downtown every day or just downtown at heart, let's jump in. We have Eric Gaikowski with AARP South Dakota back on the podcast.
Back and ready to go.
Yep, I think the last time you were on, you had promised the next time you're on, you would sing.
Well, that was for Christmas, not for now. No.
Christmas in July.
Yeah. You're going to have to figure out a really low bass song for me to sing because I can't go high.
Okay. I got a couple months to figure that out.
Perfect.
Today we're talking about AARP, DTSF, but I wanted to go a little deeper because you are the first repeat guest on Hello Downtown.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I think everybody listening is too. They've already
I figured you'd have better
turned it
ones.
off.
Shoot. Sorry.
No, I think it's a good chance to dig into some of our advocacy topics that overlap. Things like walkability, livability, open streets, just even the concept of complete streets and defining what those are for our community. I think we throw those terms around a lot. And if you're new to them, they can be a little jarring.
Yeah, absolutely. And they all kind of blend into one, that walkability, pedestrian safety, open streets, complete streets. They certainly all sound similar, but they are different things, but they all kind of work toward the same goal of having fewer pedestrian accidents, fewer vehicle pedestrian collisions, things of that nature. So they all work in tandem together.
Well, kick us off by just sort of just explaining a little bit more about what AARP does. I think a lot of people hear AARP and immediately think, retirement, discounts, the lovely free gift when you sign up for the membership and the mailers.
I strongly encourage people to look at that free gift because usually those travel accessories are great.
Yeah, there's a bag that keeps coming in my mailbox. So, but here, you're here helping support open streets. And now it was just announced that AARP National, through the Community Challenge Grant, is supporting a downtown winter market, sort of the European style winter market, all going through DTSF, the organization, of course. But how do you explain the connection to people of why AARP is involved in open streets and events and even state theater in Levitt? Yeah,
absolutely. So about a decade ago, AARP was mostly known for our federal lobbying. We worked on Social Security, Medicare, prescription drug reform, things of that nature. What we've come to find out is our members really care about what's happening to them locally. And so AARP has really moved into that world of, we've done the federal advocacy really well. We've done state advocacy really well. We haven't really engaged a whole lot on the local level, whether it's working with the mayors, working with city councils, things of that nature. So we've really moved towards that local advocacy where we can make a direct impact on for our members in that community. So that's why we're looking at things of like partnering with DTSF to bring together an open streets format where you can have people engage in community in a different way. You talk about the State Theater, the Levitt, all those fun events. Those are a great way of getting people out and being engaged in their community, which then dovetails into doing other things that are more advocacy related, like talking to their mayoral candidates, talking to city council members about what's important to them, like pedestrian safety, walkability. Housing is another huge issue for everyone in Sioux Falls, but it certainly impacts the 50 plus population as well.
It sounds a little bit like you are treating a movie at the State Theater as public input.
Absolutely. And so every time we do an event, we seek out what our members want us to be working on. So when we do a movie at the State Theater, say it's a movie on, I'm trying to remember what movie we did last. We did a movie last spring.
Predator versus Alien.
We didn't show that one.
Okay.
But that's a good one. That could have been there's some is
there a message in that? I don't know. It just came to my mind. I don't know why.
Working through your differences in a less violent way. I don't know.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Working on the environment
Right. Yes.
The physical environment.
Physical environment in a whole, like making it better for everyone.
Sorry, this went off the rails so fast.
Really quickly. It's okay. Yeah. So every time we do some sort of event, whether it's Levitt, State Theater, Open Streets, we're inviting public input on what issues are important to Sioux Falls residents and visitors too. So when we take that detail and then we can use that when we talk to city council members, mayoral candidates, whatever the case may be, about issues that are important to their local residents. You know, we have about 40,000-ish AARP members in Sioux Falls. So I'm representing those individuals. But the reality is what's good for an 8-year-old is also going to be good for an 80-year-old, because we want that 8-year-old to eventually age in place in Sioux Falls and become an 80-year-old in 72 years. So what we do for one, we do for all is kind of our motto at AARP. So just because we advocate for the 50 plus doesn't mean that we only think about what's best for the 50 plus. It really does truly mean that we want the whole community to survive, prosper, and live, work, play, and age in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, and you can become a member at 18.
You can become a member at 18.
50.
No, it's a very common misperception about AARP for sure.
Yeah, that was a misperception I had. And I pulled you aside and said, hey, why am I getting all these mailers?
Yeah.
I have been for about 10 years. And it's like, well, you can actually be a member. You should. So.
Yeah, it's always entertaining to have someone who's, in their 20s, 30s come up and say, I'm a member. And then somebody's shocked that they're a member and like, well, no, that gives us the opportunity to say that, no, you actually 18 and over can join AARP.
Yeah, absolutely. So it feels like AARP and downtown Sioux Falls just keep ending up in the same conversations. And some of those are very intentional. We're hosting a mayoral forum together. But these concepts of walkability, livability, complete streets, why do you think there's such a natural overlap?
Well, and that goes back to a lot of AARP research nationally as well. What we've found is that what I would call the boomer generation and the millennial generation have a lot of similarities where they want to move actually out of the suburbs and want to move downtown. They want to be closer to where things are happening, whether it's community engagement opportunities, whether it's healthcare, whether it's financial, whatever the case may be. Those two generations tend to trend towards a downtown core of a community. So AARP has leaned into that, and because it's important for people to be able to walk, feel safe in a community, in a location, that's why we're leaning into working with downtown Sioux Falls to make it as pedestrian friendly. Ensure walkability is a key issue, but then just making it feel as safe as possible for people to, again, live, work, play, and age in downtown Sioux Falls. Yeah.
Can we dig into that word, walkability?
Yeah.
For a little bit? Is there a definition that you can share?
Well, there is, sure. There's a definition.
Or even a plain English kind of version of it.
So what I envision it as is not just like crossing a street and feeling safe about it. It's truly having an interesting walk. That's another thing that's important about when you think about walkability, especially in a downtown environment. You're walking up and down Phillips Avenue and there's trees, there's art, there's people having a conversation at a coffee shop. Like, it's just an interesting walk. That's part of walkability. There's the fact that somebody in a wheelchair or somebody pushing a stroller can navigate the sidewalk, whether if there's a lamppost that might be out of place. That's an important piece of walkability too, So there's many, many different things that go into that term walkability. But those are the kind of things that I think about, like the safety of it, the interestingness of it, and then just the actual physical structure of where you're walking. Like, is something in my way? Is something harder to navigate? Stuff like that. That's layman's terms. Like, I'm sure there's a good definition that's way better than what I just said, but that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, it's okay. Is there a community or a city or a downtown that you visited that is just absolutely exceptional at walkability?
It's funny. I just came back from Ireland. I was in Ireland in March. And those small communities in Ireland and kind of across Europe, they do a really good job of blending walkability with public transit and cars. Not one is over any of the other ones. It really is a sense of multimodal transportation. That's
$1 million word.
Multimodal transportation.
Yep. Yeah. I've heard a lot in the meetings, and
Yeah. That
took a while.
So that's basically, you're mixing everything together. It's walking, it's biking, it's transit, it's cars, it's buses. It's all those modes of transportation coming together in one cohesive network, as opposed to just focusing on cars and parking or just focusing on pedestrians. It's truly how you see that you need to get around a community. That's the city is thinking of all those things together as opposed to one-offs.
Do you think it's different to have a walkable downtown than maybe the neighborhood next to downtown? Is it different? Do you build them differently?
I don't know. Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, obviously a true residential neighborhood is probably a little bit easier to make walkable just because it's, there's less business traffic. There's less, delivery trucks and things of that nature coming through a residential community. But you can also have traffic go a lot faster too, because there's less people parked on the street too. So like, it's kind of sometimes good to have parking because it sometimes narrows a street and slows down the traffic. Mm-hmm. And what you want going through a heavy pedestrian area is slower traffic. And whether that's built into it or speed limit signs, whatever the case may be, there's things that you want to do from both of those angles, from both the structural side, but then also the enforcement side too.
Yeah. Okay. So shifting over to a livable community, is that different than a walkable community?
No, walkability is just part of a livable community. So when you think of a livable community, and that's AARP's broader terminology for all the local work that we do, that incorporates like that community engagement piece that I talked about. Like, we don't want people to be socially isolated in their homes. We want them out feeling that they're part of a community, because when you feel like you're part of a community, you care about that community. So that community engagement side, that community involvement piece is important. Housing is a huge part of our livable communities work. That's talking about like the missing middle housing, where, it's not just these gigantic apartment buildings. It's not just single family homes. It's that messy middle where all those things kind of combined, whether it's a duplex or a condo or some of those things that are in between those two massive apartment complexes and single family homes. That's what we call the missing middle. But that oftentimes helps, we talk about like the missing teeth, the downtown. That's an opportunity for us to put some of that missing middle housing into a downtown, whether it's the shops on the bottom and the apartments and condos above type of thing, or a smaller, more residential complex, or whatever the case may be. Another piece is also just the ability to have public input. Civic engagement also is another part of livable communities, like feeling like you have a voice in your representative form of government, so that you're able to interact with your city council members, your mayor, being able to have a voice in things that happen in your community. So those are just some of the what we call the 8 domains of livability. There's 8 different buckets that we work on, but those are some of those main buckets.
Yeah. And you talk about the missing teeth in downtown. So if anyone's unfamiliar who is listening, our office is one of those missing teeth, this area here on Phillips Avenue. So if you go from Wells Fargo block up to the Orpheum Theater, where there's not restaurants, there's not active storefronts. Yeah. It's, I think psychologically people start to think it's a longer walk than it is, but maybe it's a little more unsafe, but it's really just that it's not active.
It's not active. It's less interesting. Again, what I was talking about earlier about like coffee shops, restaurants, bars, like people having those conversations when you're walking past a parking lot or just a building that's not really activated. It's just, I don't want to say it's a boring walk, but it's less interesting than some of the other locations on Phillips Avenue or downtown in general.
That's been a big perk, I think, of Sculpture Walk on Phillips Avenue too. Is I think they've been very intentional. They're starting to use words like walkability, as well. And you could see out there every 20 feet, there's a sculpture, and so even though there is a missing tooth here, there's still a little bit of a shiny distraction on the other side with the sculpture. Yeah. So
and I think the more that we can activate something like those types of opportunities for figuring out what's like the next visual that I want to get to, or I'm absolutely blanking on the word for like the community mapping of like going from place to place and like knowing like, oh, it's only a half a mile to the levee from.
Sure. Yeah, we kind of have that on our window here where it shows how many minutes of a walk it takes to get to certain places. But I think you can think of that concept too, even, when you're at a place like the mall.
Yo,
you don't think about how many steps you're taking because you're literally looking at store to store and there's just visual interest and there's something different to think about. And you're taking your mind off of how many steps you're taking and the distance.
And there again, it's about density too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got something place to place to place. So,
yeah. So maybe with the last definition kind of thing to dig into, and then we'll keep talking about other things, but just a phrase that can sound a little wonky is something called complete streets.
Yeah.
I think that's a little insider baseball. Can you explain what that means to someone who's never been in this world?
Yeah. So complete streets is really looking at how we develop the infrastructure around our community. And it's not just downtown. It's literally all of our community. Going back to that multimodal transportation, you're building your street infrastructure to accommodate all forms of transportation. And transportation isn't just cars. It's walking, it's biking, it's making a street safe for everybody. You think of moms and dads pushing kids in strollers, somebody in a wheelchair, it's an older individual using a walker to cross the street. Making that street infrastructure safe for everybody, not just somebody driving a car down the road. You want to make sure that from a city ordinance perspective, the city is focusing on making sure that the community is safe for everybody. Not not just people driving in cars.
Yeah. And you're talking about missing teeth and infrastructure. These are incredibly expensive improvements, but I know AARP, a big philosophy has been cheap and fast.
Yeah.
What are some of the small things that make a community more livable or even a downtown more walkable?
Yeah. Like the bump outs that we've done, like the even just the painted bump outs that just put a little bit more emphasis visual of, hey, somebody's probably going to be walking here. So let's be more alert, or just a simple crosswalk signs, like the light up crosswalk signs. I mean, that instantly draws your attention, say, focusing on, hey, somebody's going to be possibly crossing here. So pay more attention. Sure, there's an expense there, but that's not an ungodly amount of money to spend on things like that. And those are things that could certainly be improved upon downtown and everywhere in Sioux Falls, just making it more safe for folks to cross a street, an intersection, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about open streets then.
Yeah.
So this is, it's been a huge hit in downtown.
It's been awesome.
It's in 2024, it was October. We had this rhythm and this pattern of doing Art and Wine Walk. You guys as AARP South Dakota were involved as sponsors and just advocacy partners, and even just as volunteers and just like all in. It was sort of this idea of like, what if we blended these two? What if we put a street closure, but we're clever about the names? Now it's 2026 and we're doing 4 a year, and they're like the attendance, even at the last one, June open streets, it was in the 20,000s. I mean, it's just,
it's awesome.
Insane.
It's amazing
that they're becoming more rapidly the some of the most well-attended events we have.
And the nice thing is it blends such a good, it's community engagement, but it's also advocacy too, because you're getting city council members, you're getting candidates out there seeing that a street, a block doesn't have to just be solely for cars driving through it. Like you can activate that space for something completely different. And it allows people to kind of see our infrastructure from a different frame of reference, right? So like you're able to see like, oh, that sidewalk isn't in great shape. Let's fix it. Let's figure out a way to make it better for everybody, not just somebody driving in a car type of thing. I think it all goes back to just making sure that people understand that cars should not be the end all be all. And that should not be the 99.9% of our focus when it comes to how we build our community.
Yeah, I think the answer, or like what should be the focus of how we build our community. And I think the answer has been people, human beings,
not cars.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the complete streets, where you're building the infrastructure for people, not for vehicles.
Yeah.
Obviously a street is meant for vehicles, cars, people, but we sometimes tend to gravitate towards the vehicle side of things and not the people side of things.
Yeah. Because when we do a street project anywhere in this community or anywhere in this country, it includes typically a sidewalk, a curb, down here it includes patio space. It includes a lot of crosswalks.
Yeah.
There's so much more. And there are things like raised intersections and raised crosswalks and speed bumps and things that could be included.
Delineators, the pots that you put out for plants. I mean, there's so many different things that we could be doing to, make things more interesting, more pedestrian safe, to slow traffic down. I mean, that's the end all be all, is slowing the traffic so it's safer for people.
Yeah. So back to open streets. If we look back to October of 2024 and just thinking about those initial conversations and just this concept, I don't think open streets is in other places.
Right.
It was not invented here.
Yeah. Ours
look probably different than other people's. There's flexibility and freedom in the themes and just what our streetscape looks like. What was this project initially intended to test or prove? You kind of went into a little bit with just like, we need to fix the sidewalk, but I think there was a lot more than that.
Yeah, it really is about showcasing to the community that a street isn't solely for vehicles. And by closing it down, we're able to open it up for other things. So you're closing it down to traffic, but you're opening it up for bars and restaurants to have service out on the patio or service out on the sidewalk or out into the street. You're able to bring in vendors, things of that nature, where it really allows the community to activate the entirety of that space, as opposed to just the traffic that comes along with having a street that's open.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just been incredible to see how the community responded to that. I know we're doing some more on the cuff surveying of people where they're like individually responding to some questions. And I think pretty consistently we heard, do more of this, do it in other places.
Yeah.
We feel safer.
It's the great thing that when it's a success is when other parts of the community want to do their own open streets. And, you've seen that with Burger Battle, like other neighborhoods, communities have tried to replicate that. Now you're starting to see neighborhood associations saying, hey, we want to close down a street and open it up to the community type of thing. So, you've had a successful event and you're getting noticed by other people when somebody wants to replicate it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think we've already been approached by the Whittier Neighborhood Association, which is really an interesting idea of a collaboration in the future, or just allowing them to take the brand and the concept and see it grow. I think it's
great. And honestly, the more you can incubate that, the more partners that you have, the more advocates you have to improve pedestrian safety around the city.
Yeah, and I think that's the best case scenario for DTSF, is that we're not always the event organizer. We are a very small team. Our primary focus is to advocate for downtown and to drive human beings downtown. And so events happen to be one of the ways we can do that. Marketing is as well, policy change, but also the ambassador program. And so if we can spur others on to have more activation, more events, in addition to the core that we're doing, signature events, if you will, it just means more people down here, more support for the businesses.
Well, and that's what makes DTSF such a great organization to work with, because you are small and lean and flexible on being able to do some of these things. Because from an AARP perspective, our community challenge grants, they're 6-7 months, and those projects are meant to be done. Being able to be flexible like DTSF is, that allows you to be more nimble and being able to take an advantage of an opportunity like that, to take some of those community grant dollars and create a winter market. That's a new idea for downtown Sioux Falls, which I think is going to be phenomenal. I think like people are going to love that experience around the holiday season, because you do want to be out being part of a community, doing something different, and just really enjoying our community. So I think the winter market is going to be a great idea.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit, but first maybe we'll dive into the community challenge grant itself.
Sure.
This is where it gets a little complex because it's through AARP National.
Correct.
Not
we do all the
South
judging.
Dakota.
Yeah, we do. So AARP South Dakota does all the judging. We accept all the applications. We do the judging for it. But the dollars are coming from our national office. So this is the 10th year that we've been doing these. AARP South Dakota has given, or AARP nationally has given out a little over $500,000 in South Dakota over the last 10 years for these community challenge grants. I will say that Sioux Falls has probably received a little over $100,000 just across the board of that $500,000 for some really great projects. Like the 8th and Railroad. There's the cross, or the crossing, the pedestrian crossing.
Yeah, kind of the bump outs in the bump outs, the shorter crosswalk.
Yeah. Yep. So that was actually just a test and learn site. See if that would reduce the traffic speeds in that area, because we had identified that was a need. Traffic was going well over the speed limit in that area, and so we tested and learned and saw that extra, the bump outs, the delineators, things of that nature, slow traffic down significant. So the city took it upon themselves to take that test and learn and made it get into a permanent structure to keep traffic calmer in that area. So we've seen these types of examples across the state in the communities that we've put these dollars into. And again, from a local advocacy perspective, it's a great way for us to infuse some dollars for small grants, but it takes a huge leap in terms of people being more connected to their community and thinking, oh, how else can I make my community more livable, more walkable, more whatever?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that is a great example. The 8th Street example is a good one. DTSF has received, I believe it's 4 of these grants, maybe if not 5. 2 of those were bump out projects.
Yeah.
One was to launch, or to kind of take the concept of open streets from this tiny little pilot to a full summer series, which was last year. And then this coming year is this winter market. I imagine seeing this kind of seed startup money turn into permanent projects is compelling. Absolutely. On the selection side.
Yeah. And it allows you to take a little nest egg, figure out if it actually works here, and then you can find sponsors, find more partners to be involved next year, and make it into a bigger and better thing year over year. And if it doesn't work, we'll
let it go.
You let it go.
Yeah, that was interesting about Open Streets is it exploded pretty fast. And it was like, you can't figure out how to continue to do this, which is great. It's a great piece of feedback or piece of data just from watching how people interact with it. I have a feeling a winter market is going to have the same impact. And so just sort of bracing myself now for 27. But it's I'll
apologize now.
No, when people respond to it, it makes the work worthwhile.
Yeah.
I think. Now, maybe to contrast some of those good examples with, I think our bump out project in 24 was less successful.
Yeah.
That's where we did do painted, but we did like 11 intersections instead of 1 that was tied to a specific upcoming project. We tried to get maybe a little clever with how the delineators looked.
Right.
And so they were harder to see and they sort of blended in with the street, and we had people taking them out. So again, like, it was a learning experience. It's all data.
Yeah.
And you can still see some of the paint on there because it takes a couple of years for it to just naturally go away.
But people were talking about it. So it's not a lot of failure.
A lot of media. Nope. Well, I mean, it just was a learning experience too. Just, some of these don't make sense. Some aren't even ADA accessible because they lead you into a curb, and so good learning experience. And I think it has made us better into simpler more deep asks instead of wide.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. And I think the reality is that the more you can be focused on a test and learn, and makes total sense to be able to say, we're going to do this specific thing in this specific area, and we're going to try it out.
You are listening to Hello Downtown, a podcast by Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated. I'm Brandon Hansen. Yeah, well, let's get into the winter market. I know one of the kind of the prompts when you're filling out the community challenge grant is it really does talk about how you know what are you going to do to address where infrastructure has historically or just naturally kind of disrupted community and created a void.
Yeah,
and what is your project going to do to bring community back? And so some of those bump outs of just literally making crosswalks shorter so that more people walk and see each other face to face is part of that. But the winter market certainly fits there as well. Really trying to address social isolation.
Yeah.
In the winter months,
social connectivity, all those things, community engagement. Yeah, no, I think in that regard, I think the one thing that we'll want to definitely monitor is, where people are coming from, like who's engaging in that activity. The one thing is making sure that everybody has the opportunity to participate, and that'll be the challenge if there's snow or things like that. Is just how do you manage that? It's incredibly important especially for AARP to make sure that everybody can have the opportunity to engage in it if they're able to, and that'll be the challenge for us, I think. Being on the DTSF board, I'm also I want to see this succeed because I think it's a great project. And I think it's something that a lot of cities our size across the nation do something similar, a holiday market, whether it's around winter, whether around Thanksgiving, whatever the case may be, doing something along those lines. And it's something that's been talked about a lot for the past decade. And now I'm very happy to see it coming to fruition this year.
Yeah, I was working elsewhere, but in my time at the Washington Pavilion, there were discussions back then,
mm-hmm.
which was almost a decade ago, about how do we get a European market down here. And I didn't realize those little nuggets and those thoughts 10 years ago were going to come into this, but it is cool to get to be part of launching that. And, I hope, I'm assuming it will carry on, like I said, but I hope other people will join us and partner and make it bigger and bigger, because we're going to need partners to make this bigger than just a small little market.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of people to put something like this on. It takes
a lot of people to put this on. The AARP national office is in Washington, D.C., and on the block that our national office is, that's where their D.C. winter market is. And I will tell you that it is wildly popular. And I know we tend to do things on the weekend, but this one is open all week long, the week after Thanksgiving through the week of Christmas. And it's just incredibly popular. There's artists, there's musicians playing, there's warm apple cider, the whole business. And I think it's going to be such a cool vibe for downtown Sioux Falls when we successfully do this, that people are just going to be like, yeah, we got to bring this back.
Yeah.
Year after year.
Got to be heaters. There's got to be seating. There's got to be, tents and coverage. And gosh, I can even imagine, warm pretzels. And so if there's any vendors out there listening,
you're going to want to be part of this and be on the front side of it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And we literally would not do this without this community challenge grant. We have $0 to put toward it.
Yeah, no, again, that's the great thing about being able to have these test and learn opportunities. Like we're able to inject some cash to an organization that we trust to do this type of work. And this is honestly the best part of being the AARP South Dakota State Director, is to do these community challenge grants, because again, you've got a community like Sioux Falls with the downtown Sioux Falls that is taking advantage of these dollars to do these cool things. But then you have a Lemon, South Dakota, that's like 500 people that comes up with a the Buffalo Bakery idea where some people in Lemon wanted to sell some baked goods at the library, but they didn't have any way to do so. But it also brought people together at the library. So it was a place for people to have coffee, have some baked goods, do some more community engagement. And so we gave them some dollars, and this Buffalo Bakery is wildly popular in Lemon, South Dakota.
Why Buffalo?
I assume there's Buffalo around there. I don't know.
Yeah, we're just in rural South Dakota. Yeah, great. I want to visit that now. So, when people first show up to this winter market, which isn't exactly designed fully yet, what do you want people to feel?
The holiday spirit. I mean, I want to see roaming choral groups out there. Carolers. That's the word I'm looking for. Carolers.
I like your version better. Roaming
bands of choral.
That's so good.
Oh man. Yeah. Carolers.
Yeah.
If we have some carolers out there, and I know Sioux Falls is an artistic community. Like I know there are carolers out there. Like I feel like walking around with your hot chocolate or mulled wine or whatever the case may be. I feel like, again, I keep using the word vibes because like it's summer. But I think it's gonna be a pretty amazing holiday vibe to go down to Winter Market, downtown Sioux Falls. Be great.
Yeah. So just a really quick sidebar. I think it's just phenomenal to have the AARP state director using the word vibes so consistently. I think that's just quite special. Well, more into what you were actually talking about. Why is year-round activity such an important part of a livable downtown?
Because we should keep these places activated no matter what time of year it is. We want the people that are living here want to engage in their community. They want to be out and about. We can't just hole up for 4 months out of the year. We've always come together in the state of South Dakota, whether you're a rural community or a city, you get together in winter times or in the summertime. So the reality is like, as a community, we should support that and lean into it. And I think just because it's cold out doesn't mean we should stop getting together. And again, back to that social isolation, winter can be lonely for a lot of individuals. So the more that we can get people out and engaging in the community, better it is for everybody's health, the community, the economy, all those things.
Yeah. Well, let's shift into kind of the back end of our conversation here. I want to move into just maybe an honest downtown Sioux Falls conversation and talk about where our gaps are, where our opportunities are when it comes to walkability, livability, complete streets, and all of the things we've talked about today. So when you look at downtown Sioux Falls today, where do you already think we're doing a good job in making this more livable?
I think we do a really good job of identifying the issues. I think when we do a really good job of talking through things, I think where we sometimes miss is when we come into action and making sure that, we can identify what street is a bad street, whether it's the speed of traffic or vehicles not paying attention to pedestrians, things of that nature. But make sure that actually is rectified. Like that's that action piece of it is where we fail sometimes, where it's, we think of like the viaduct, like we know that is like people fly down the viaduct into downtown, but we haven't really done a whole lot on that. And I know downtown Sioux Falls and the city are now working on ways to carve out some of that and constrict the flow of traffic to maybe slow people down, which I think is a great idea. So that's just one of those things that we might not do as good of a job as we could be doing.
Whose job is it to identify the issues?
I think it's all of our jobs to identify the issue.
And then, all right, you see an issue, you've identified one. What do you do with that?
You go to the people that you trust. So whether that's AARP, downtown Sioux Falls, the city is the one who actually makes the improvements on the infrastructure. So obviously talking to a city council member, the mayor, reaching out to those individuals. It's a great way to have your concern addressed. And then it's their job to take that down to the Public Works, the planning, those entities to make sure that those problems are addressed. I think a downtown master plan is another area where we certainly could focus on finding out what those issues are and how we can address those into the future.
Gosh, now I want to get a certain sound effect on here. Applause. How about that? Do you think I can get this going here? That's okay. Doesn't matter. There you go.
Downtown master plan gets the applause.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's the reality is like we've reached that point in our city where we need to have a downtown master plan.
Don't we already have one? That's what I hear when I say that too.
No, not a true downtown master plan.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about the things that we could do, but if it's in a master plan, what's put on paper gets done oftentimes. So that's why it's important to have a downtown master plan.
Yeah. I think about, nerdy side of me thinks about Lord of the Rings, the plan to rule all the plans, the ring to rule all the rings.
Yeah.
Just connecting them all and making sure they're all talking to one another,
right.
Making sure that
all city departments are working together too.
Absolutely.
In one direction.
And even downtown Sioux Falls and the Chamber and AARP and Experience Sioux Falls, that we're all in lockstep and we're, the rising tide lifts all boats. Like,
no,
it doesn't work if we're poking holes in each other's boats.
Yeah. and I think sometimes we can lose focus on one bright, shiny object to the next, and when you have a plan, then you're able to say, oh, wait, we have a plan in place. Let's focus on that rather than the bright, shiny object that's coming down the road.
Yeah. And I think we now have that.
We do now have that.
I think there's a little bit of concern that, Smithfield is going to move somewhere else in town. We're going to be able to keep all those employees in town. And all of a sudden there's hundreds of developable acres of land.
Right.
But we still have an empty Argus building. We still have an empty Wells Fargo. And, how do we do both?
Right.
Not forget about what we've been building for 60 some years.
And again,
that goes working on the next 60.
Yeah. And that goes back to that master plan. Like if it's so critical to really have that long range planning, short, intermediate and long-term planning, because you could be solely focused on the Smithfield area or Sanford district, and lose focus on those things that you just mentioned, the missing teeth of downtown, the current footprint of downtown, just because we're solely focused on that area and the potential of that area where you're missing really amazing opportunities in the current downtown footprint.
Yeah. The new area needs to add, not replace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or contradict or all those things.
It's all downtown.
Yeah.
Well, so the plan that exists today, when I talk about creating a master plan, the plan of all plans, when people ask me, don't we already have one? They're referring to the Downtown Horizon 2035 plan from the city,
sure.
Which speaks a lot to the public infrastructure. So city-owned buildings, the sidewalk, the streets, the trees, and a lot of the stuff we're talking about today even doesn't talk about private property, doesn't address that Wells Fargo is vacant largely, that they have a parking structure right there, and it's some of the most prime real estate.
Absolutely.
That should be redeveloped. Now it's not for sale necessarily. And that's, I think, why they kind of avoid it, but they're talking mostly about city owned assets. It does set a pretty big goal though. In it, it states that downtown Sioux Falls will become the most walkable downtown in the nation.
It's a big goal.
By 2035.
It's a big goal. I love it.
How realistic is that? And what do we need to start ramping up if we're going to get there?
Well, the very first thing you need to do is pass a complete streets ordinance. We have a complete streets policy, but that's not an ordinance. It's a suggestion, but it's not an ordinance. There's a big difference there. And
just for downtown or for the whole city?
For the whole city.
Wow.
Yeah. So we do have a policy in place.
Do you have anybody working on that, or?
Like, as I said, it's a suggestion. It's not a you must do.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Okay.
An ordinance.
That's one.
That would right then and there put ourselves on the map as saying we're serious about this and we're going to make improvements when it comes to walkability.
Okay. What happens after ordinance?
After the ordinance,
we start tearing up the streets.
Oh, no. Right. So basically when you think about a complete streets ordinance, a lot of it is going to focus on new development. So if say the Sanford district, when we think about building out that infrastructure, you're building that with the complete streets in mind. Existing infrastructure only gets replaced when it's up for replacement. So you're able to do those fixes as they come along.
In the capital improvement plan.
Correct. Yeah. So it's not like like say Phillips Avenue right now, you wouldn't go and just tear up Phillips Avenue and do all these new improvements upon it. It would come along as you're doing those the capital improvement plans.
Yeah. When the road has reached its useful life or blah, blah, blah.
Or like the viaduct is a perfect example. You're bringing in those complete streets ordinance policies into that. You're building them into it when it's being built, not in the older structure.
Yeah. Well, you brought up the viaduct, so now I want to talk about it. Yeah, I think that one has been an interesting conversation. It is getting much more collaborative between DTSF and the city, and just DTSF acting on behalf of its members' voices, just like AARP does. I think the initial conversations were, you want no cars to come down here? And it's like, no. We want lots of people, but we want them to stay.
We want them to
slow down. We want them to get out of their car.
It's a destination, not a pass through.
That's the simplest probably way to say it.
We want to be the place where people come to, not go through. Yep. Right. So that's the reality. And if we're solely focused on moving traffic through downtown, that's the wrong mentality to have.
Wrong goal.
100%. Like you want people to come to downtown rather than just driving through it.
Yep, absolutely. And it's coming through not signage, but it's coming through the physical design. Correct. And they would call it the built environment. That's kind of the technical word, but
yeah. If you're solely trying to get from the far east side to the far west side, you're likely not going to go through downtown anyways. We want people to come to downtown, feel safe downtown, feel comfortable walking around downtown. We shouldn't be worried about solely traffic flow.
Absolutely. And I think that was another sort of just like an aha moment, if you will, of, well, it will create congestion. And we are saying good.
Yeah. That calls
That's
traffic.
actually a good word.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are more safe. Yeah, I think it's just measuring a different kind of safety. It's measuring economic activity and traffic efficiency.
Right.
All together.
Absolutely.
Equally. There's other communities that use these standards and these policies. We're just honestly kind of behind.
A little bit behind for sure on that. And again, the more you can have people out on a bike or out walking and less in a vehicle, your roads will not be as bad in the future. The less people that are driving a car on a road, our infrastructure will be better off in the future. So our tax dollars will be even less. So the more that you can encourage people to use other modes of transportation, the fewer potholes you're going to have, the fewer things you're going to have to replace. So I think that's the other thing that we always think so next 2-3 years as opposed to 5-10 years down the road. If I'm biking to work as opposed to driving to work, I'm putting a lot less stress on the roads and infrastructure if I'm biking as opposed to driving my truck to work.
I bike pretty hard, man.
Nice.
I don't know.
It's good. It's good for the community. You should.
I walk a lot.
Okay.
But, well, thank you for joining us again. I think that was really helpful for a lot of our people who are listening just to understand some of those words more. Is there anything that we missed that our people should know?
No, I don't think so. I would just encourage folks to get involved. Like make sure that you're either checking in with your neighborhood association, checking in with Downtown Sioux Falls, checking in with AARP South Dakota. Like we care about making the community a better place for everybody. So the more that we can stay connected, be engaged in community, the better it is for the community.
Yeah. And I do think on the viaducts, I do think there's a a final public input meeting that will have more pedestrian elements included coming up in the next couple of months. It's not set quite yet, but stay tuned. Keep an eye on our website. Keep an eye on the city's website, and that'll be posted. But please show up, take the surveys,
absolutely
participate. It's one of the many 100-year decisions right now that we're all deciding on. So
absolutely. And the more you make your voice heard, the better it is for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Brandon.
This is Hello Downtown.
Downtown Open Streets is back. Join us this summer as we create a car-free community playground with 4 family-friendly events at the start of each month.
Find more about Open Streets and all events in downtown Sioux Falls at our website, dtsf.com. dtsf.com.